So welcome to my top 10 Super Nintendo games. And I'm very excited to do this today. We're going back to that wonderful time in our lives when the Super Nintendo was alive and vibrant. And I was there for that. I know a lot of you were there for that. And all of you who were not there, come on a journey, have a little bit of fun. And I just want to say one thing right now. This is just my top 10 list. There's no official top 10 list online. These are just some of my personal picks, some of my most nostalgic picks, and some games that I really played a lot. Definitely tell me what your top 10 Super Nintendo games are, because this has been the most difficult top 10 list I have ever done. Because there is so many incredible games, and I'm like, this has to be on the list, but this has to be on the list. And a couple of honorable mentions. Quickly, I'm going to go through here. UN Squadron by Capcom, a side view shoot 'em up, gets definitely an honorable mention. F-Zero almost made it in the list. I was in the list and it got bumped out by another game that had to be in there. This is an amazing racing game. Used to play it all the time back then. This game, again, should be in the top 10 list. The Ninja Warriors. This is an amazing side view action game. It's a sequel to the Ninja Warriors arcade game. I love this. I love it so much that I have 2 copies of it. I don't know how I came across 2 copies of it, but I have it. I'm very happy. I also want to say some other honorable mentions. Final Fight, the original. Yes, I know, the one without Guy. It definitely needed Guy. Guy got added later on into a different version. But it was kind of a thing of the time when Final Fight was first on the Super Nintendo. It was an amazing arcade game ported to the Super Nintendo, and you couldn't believe you were getting arcade games like this on the Super Nintendo. And oh man, it's a nostalgic one, so I had to mention it. Another nostalgic one, but one that should be on the list as well. I played so many hours of this. I think it's my most played Super Nintendo game, and that is the original Street Fighter II. My house was the place where all the kids in the neighborhood came to play this game every single day. We did hours and hours of this game. So many competitions, so many playthroughs of it, so many versus modes. Oh my god, I trained my girlfriend at the time to be amazing at it. We played it every day. I played it for at least 4 hours a day for years. So we've got the honorable mentions out of the way. Now we're gonna get into the top 10 list. At number 10, this was a game that blew me away with the graphics and everybody else at the time with a certain FX graphics, and that is Star Fox. The introduction of the Star Fox franchise, our introduction to Fox McCloud and his gang, and this looked unreal at the time. And I remember people coming over and they couldn't believe the polygon graphics. You'd never seen anything like this on the Super Nintendo, and it was pushing it so much, and all the varying levels, and I love Star Fox so much, and to be honest with you, I don't think any Star Fox game has come close to the first game in that I was so awed the first time I saw this, and all the Star Fox games since then have had their charms, but not like the original for me. At number 9, I thought about this, and I'm like, this has to be in. This is the first Super Nintendo game I ever got because it came with my Super Nintendo, and I can't find the cartridge of it, but that's okay. Super Mario World. I was so lucky when my parents said to me, hey, you want to go get that Super Nintendo from the States? And I'm like, what? Yes, of course I do. That would be amazing. And we drove down to Bellis Fair, and I picked up my Super Nintendo. I was probably the happiest I've ever been in my life, and I brought it home, hooked it all up, and Super Mario World was my introduction to the Super Nintendo, and what a great introduction. This was Super Mario kind of upgraded with Yoshi in there, running around the levels, and things were bigger. I remember running down corridors and huge things coming down to crush you, and I was like, oh my god, look at the size of that, because we're just coming off the NES days, so seeing graphics like that were amazing at that time, and it was just a really fun game, so much charm in it. Had to be in the top 10 list. How could it not be? At number 8 is a very beautiful game. Squaresoft at the time was just knocking it out of the park. And I remember, to my local Zellers I picked this up from. And that is a small little game. Secret of Mana. I spent so many hours playing this with my friend Andrew. I had just graduated high school at the time, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was just watching Samurai Pizza Cats and sitting around at home wondering what I was going to do next. And Andrew was in high school, and he would get off high school and come over to my place, and we would play this co-op, and it was so much fun. Like, Secret of Mana is a beautiful game. It's a gorgeous game with really great music. And another big thing about it was spending all the hours back then just leveling up, and that was the fun of it. I remember babysitting for my aunt and uncle, and I was just sitting in the basement, and I was just playing Secret of Mana all night, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. But what a wonderful time with Secret of Mana. That had to be there for sure. At number 7, this should be up there. This should almost could be like number 2 or something. It's just, I had to bump one out to get this in because this had to be in. And please forgive my ratty copy, but it's my ratty copy and I love it. And that is Final Fantasy II. I bought this copy used because I borrowed my friend Andrew's sloppy second version. And I remember he got this game and it was like, oh my God, we'd all been waiting for another Final Fantasy game. You know, because we played it on the NES and we're like, oh my God, Final Fantasy 2? I know obviously we didn't get the real 2 and 3, so they just went straight to calling 4 2 over here for naming purposes. But when I first went over to his place and I saw this, I couldn't believe the graphics. I couldn't believe the emotion of this game. The beautiful Mode 7 graphics while the airships are flying over the Baron, the gorgeous animation of combat, and the beautiful music that is a soundtrack I still listen to this day. And I get so many nostalgic memories thinking about sitting in my parents' basement playing Final Fantasy II. And it was such a magical time in my life and definitely, again, needed to be in the top 10. Now, when I was younger, I was stupid and I sold this copy, my physical copy of this game, to upgrade later on to buy some different kinds of games, and I was an idiot. I was an idiot because this game is number 6 on my list and it is Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Oh my God. This is one game that I'm really, really good at because I played it every single day. And it's a sequel to Ghosts and Goblins and Ghouls and Ghosts, and this was the Super Nintendo game. And it was awesome. I love the gothic setting. I love the eerie music. And there was a challenge there, but it was a good challenge that if you memorize the levels and, you know, enemy placement and where enemies could sprout up from, you'd always be okay. You will learn. The more you play the game, the better you get. And that's one of the things I like about the game is the challenge. And I picked it up to do some gameplay again. I haven't played it in about 10 years. And I couldn't believe I just picked it up again and I knew exactly what I was doing. But I would love a sequel to this. It's such a wonderful game and had to be in the top 10 list. Now I'm going to pull a Superman right here for number 5, and that is for Super Metroid. And I gotta be honest with you, I saw Rob play Metroid when we were younger, and I saw my friend Andrew play Metroid, and I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting, but I don't think the NES Metroid is for me. So the Super Nintendo version was coming out, and I thought the graphics looked awesome. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, but it wasn't on my radar until I went down to my friend Andrew's place. He had it, and it's one of those moments when I went in, sat in the basement, I watched him play it for half an hour, and then I had to go and get my copy, and then I had to get this copy years later because I sold, you know, when you're a kid, you sell things and you regret it later. But this is a copy I picked up years later. Again, Super Metroid, one of the best games on the Super Nintendo. Arguably, this is such a wonderful game, and it made the jump to the Super Nintendo in such a beautiful way. There was more detail in the graphics, in the underground. I just remember marveling at the detail. But it wasn't only that, it was the gameplay was awesome, and just finding things here and there, different missiles and upgrades to your suit, and just the boss encounters, the monster designs. It was eerie, and again, I'm gonna say a soundtrack that still to this day still holds up and takes me back to Andrew's basement, first discovering Super Metroid, and I became a Metroid fan after that for life. I really did. At number 4 is a game that I think is on most people's top 10 Super Nintendo games, and if it isn't, well, that's kind of surprising because the game is wondrous. It's incredible. I'll never forget picking it up with my parents, bringing it back. It was a sunny day outside. I closed all the blinds and I went into my room and I turned this on. I'd been waiting so long for this. The build up, the excitement, and finding out it was at a Famicom Games down by me. My dad drove me up to pick it up. I was so happy to go and grab that. I have a good memory of us driving back and me holding the box, being so excited. And that is for The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Yes, 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 yes. This game is a marvel of game design, graphical design, gameplay design, music design, Zelda design. I liked Zelda 1 and 2, but it was because this was on the Super Nintendo, and I finally got a Zelda on that, and it was awesome. It had this beautiful cartoony look, and I just love the enemies, I just love the gameplay, I love the lights and dark world going back and forth. I thought it was genius, and here's something else. One thing that I didn't have back then was walkthroughs, so I figured this game out on my own. And some people have played it recently, friends of mine, and they're like, I don't know how you ever did that. And it's just like, I had the time. I was like 16 years old. I had more than enough time. I was just in high school at the time. I just come home, play this all night, and I enjoyed figuring out the puzzles. And I liked being stumped and trying to figure it out. And it was difficult, but so rewarding, and had to be 100% in the top 10 list. Oh wow, we're down to the top 3. And these are some beautiful ones in here. There's some beautiful ones in here. This one especially. Oh my god, I almost dropped the box. And it would be a big box disaster because it came in such a great, huge box at the time. And that is Earthbound. Earthbound. This game goes for a lot of money. And I think the reason why it does is because this game was panned at the time. A lot of people didn't understand it. They're like, a modern day RPG? I don't like that. What is this? It's not for me. And so a lot of people passed on it. And so they discounted the game. The game went out of print really fast. But for all of us that were there from day one that were looking forward to this, I was looking forward to a modern day Goonies adventure RPG. Did I get that? Yeah. Did I get something else? Oh, absolutely. I got something that was so emotional that it's like 24 years later for me. I was 21 years old when this game came out, and I remember playing it that summer and having tears. I was like, oh, I love this game so much, and I have that same kind of emotion now. There's something, if you get this game, you get it, and if you don't, I don't think you ever will, and that's okay. But for all the people who did, there's a magic here. This game is magical, and it's one of those ones where I'm hoping that Nintendo revisits the mother franchise, because this game had such an impact on me. Being 21 years old, I loved it so much then. I love it so much now. I always am happy when I can capture footage for it and revisit that music and revisit my youth. And Earthbound is about youth. And it's about adventure and discovery, and it does it so well. Ooh, boy. Holding back the tears. Holding back the tears. I gotta hold back the tears for this one as well. As we hit number 2. This was a dream team. The dream team came together. The godfather of Final Fantasy, the great artist of Dragon Ball, and also the godfather of Dragon Quest came together in a way that I hope one day we'll see again. I don't know if we ever will. To create one game that we need a true sequel to. We got a sequel that I enjoyed, but we need to revisit this. Chrono Trigger, one of the great RPGs on the Super Nintendo, if not the greatest. This game was so hyped for me. I bought the soundtrack months before this from a local Asian mall by me. I spent $57 on the CD soundtrack because I was so fanatical, and I had to hear the music. Even before we got this game in the country, and I would listen to the music every night, and I was like, oh my god, this game is going to be big. This game is going to be big. I was reading about it so much in Game Fan magazines and in so many magazines, and I'm like, is it out yet? Is it out yet? And then it came out. And I had my friend Andrew visiting me at the time, and I was in my room, and he was so mad at me that I got the game. And I remember also $100. It was $99 Canadian at the time, because I remember I had a $100 bill, and I think I got $1 back. I think that's what it was. But Andrew was so mad. He's like, I don't want to see the game. I don't want to be spoiled, because he was really looking forward to it as well. And we're still big video game fans to this day, me and Andrew, and we have such treasured memories of this game. And the character designs, the time travel aesthetics, the combat. This game was a marvel then. It's a marvel now. And then, when I said I want a sequel to it, we got Chrono Cross, and I do like Chrono Cross. but I kind of want like something that says Chrono Trigger 2. Something like that. Square Enix, you need to revisit this game. You'll be printing money. And this is my original copy here. I bought day one. I'm still so happy to have it all these years later. What a marvelous game. The time has come. The time has come for number one. There can only be number one here. There can only be a number one choice. This was an easy one for me. It really was. Chrono Trigger and Earthbound and, A Link to the Past and Super Metroid are all there for me. But this was the big RPG on the machine. I had been waiting years for this. The build-up, the excitement. A sequel to Final Fantasy II, which was really a sequel to Final Fantasy V, because it's Final Fantasy VI in Japan, Final Fantasy III when it was released out here. I know there was quite a bit of confusion over the titling of the number system here, but that didn't matter. I was just happy to get the game. I went into a master game player at the time. It was a video game store, and I always remember the guy giving me the game, and I paid him the money. And he goes, "Hey, have fun," and I'm like, "Oh, I will." I remember saying that. It was just like I felt so fanatical. I finally got it, and I went home, and again, I know, closed all of the blinds and made myself a cup of coffee. Back then I was a smoker. I had a couple of cigarettes, and I turned on that beginning, and I got a tear watching that opening as the robots walk through the snow, and you get to hear that beautiful music, and it's just incredible. I absolutely love that beginning, and I love this game. This game took me a long time to finish. A long time. I spent so many hours grinding, getting all of the characters, getting to so much combat, but I loved it. I love the world they built. I love the overworld music, and we're gonna listen to the best overworld music in a video game of all time right now. That music is incredible, and I love it so much. I love all of the soundtrack to this game. Spent so many hours on this game, have so many fond memories. I was 20 years old when that game came out. 25 years ago at this point for Final Fantasy III getting released on the Super Nintendo. And what an enjoyable time today getting to talk about some of my favorite Super Nintendo games. And for me, I do these so I can revisit them all again. And I get to capture all the footage, and I get to play all the games, and I get to listen to all the music again. I get to go into Super Nintendo Land, and I love it. I love being in Super Nintendo Land. I hope you did as well. So anyways, guys, until next time.